Welcome back to another edition of the White Out Report. Fittingly named tonight because this is the post game edition for Penn State's White Out against Oregon. A game that went from seeming it was going to be a here we go again to just an absolutely gut wrenching, heartbreaking loss for the Nittany Lions. A game where for the first 50 minutes, Oregon was by far the better team, but to Penn State's credit, they punched back in the fourth quarter, got some things going offensively, forced overtime, had all the momentum, took a lead in overtime. But in the end, it was, where we're going to hear the narratives nonstop moving forward now was once again Drew Aller coming up short in the big games with a killer interception. I mean, a game-ending interception, quite literally, in the second overtime to cap off what was a very inconsistent, to put it the best, night for Drew. So it was, it's extremely frustrating to sit here after one like this where you felt going in, it very much felt like the top 10 with James Franklin, Drew Aller, we've heard it nonstop. If not now, when? You're the team that brought everything back. You're the senior laden team. You're at home. It's the whiteout. This is a very talented, but very young and up until tonight, unproven Oregon team. If not now, when? And they still couldn't get it done. So, just a very frustrating loss for the Nittany Lions tonight against Oregon in front of a very, very raucous whiteout crowd.
Yeah, it's I just talked to a few people about this briefly before jumping on, and the first things that come to my mind is they seemingly invent different ways to lose these games every year. And they tend to lose these games in the most, gut wrenching of fashion for fans. In that overtime, I said to somebody right before Aller's interception that if you can win this game, it feels like a game where you would be exercising the demons per se of the last however many years for Penn State of being in these games, coming all so close to winning and then coming up short. But at the end of the day, they remain who they are, which is a really, really, really good program, but one that just still cannot find a way to win that big game against elite teams. Some people point to Boise State, some people point to SMU. Those were good teams last year, but they're not Ohio State. They're not Oregon. They're not Michigan. At the end of the day, Penn State's James Franklin will probably say in the post-game press conference as we're doing this, there's, 130 programs in the country that would trade places with Penn State right now. But at Penn State, it's not good enough at this point, right? It's not good enough. They keep finding ways to come up short, and that's, I think James Franklin's a really, really good coach. I think what he's done at Penn State is really, really good, but again, they seemingly find new ways to lose this type of game every year, and it is kind of baffling how they do it every year in these sorts of games. And the season's not over for them. They still have Ohio State in a couple of weeks, right? But I'm not sure anybody really believes that Penn State's going to beat Ohio State in Columbus in November, and there's no reason people should. I've been saying for a couple of years now, I'm not picking Penn State to win that game until Penn State proves to me they can win that game. And tonight, I we'll probably not talk about them as much as we probably should. There is positives to take away from this game. What Penn State showed offensively for the fourth quarter and that first overtime drive was really, really good. The defense, despite giving up 30 points tonight, was really, really good. But it wasn't good enough, and that's kind of the story of Penn State football the last decade, right? It really, really good, but not good enough. And I'll throw it back to you in a second, but as one of our good friends, Clay, said, it's like with James Franklin, definitely one of the best coaches in the country, but It's hard to blame Penn State fans that may want something different at this point, just because it's Groundhog's Day every season. Anytime Penn State plays a top 10, top 5 team.
Yeah, it does feel like Groundhog's Day over and over again, doesn't it? And like you said, they just keep finding new ways. I mean, tonight, this was a game for the first 50 minutes. This offense looked hapless. And then they got into a rhythm, and Andy Koldenicki started getting into his bag. And I thought for the most part, Koldenicki, I'm not going to lie, I thought for the most part, he called an awful game.
Yeah.
Right, that interception in double overtime, that was a terrible play call. That is a play that is set up to fail from the start. Especially because you were starting to wear Oregon down.
And if I may on the interception,
yeah, good.
What did they do well in the fourth quarter? Now Aller did have that terrific touchdown throw in the fourth quarter. I mean, you watch Drew, and you'll see that interception at the end of the game, and that's an interception that people who are against Drew Aller are going to point to, right? But then he also makes that great throw for the touchdown in the fourth quarter. And you kind of saw that at times throughout this game of the bad and the good. But when Penn State was going well in the fourth quarter offensively and in overtime, what were they doing well? They were taking the ball out of Drew's hands.
Mm-hmm.
They were allowing the skill position players to win the game for them. Katron Allen, Devontae Ross, Trevor Pena. They were allowing them to win the game. Even when Drew was using his legs, that was good. But you put the game back in his hands with that pass, and in already a situation where it's short field. They throw the ball to the near sideline, which I'd never like. It just jumbles everybody up, which happened on that play. Because even if Dylan Dillman doesn't intercept that ball, there's another 3-4 defenders right there. Maybe it's not intercepted, but it's not going to. It could very well fall incomplete there. But yeah, as much as a Drew Aller fan that I am in terms of his abilities and his potential, it is a very tough player to defend when he consistently comes up short in these clutch situations. It was very reminiscent of last year's Orange Bowl against Notre Dame.
Yeah, unfortunately it was. And yeah, it was extremely frustrating because, again, I thought, like you said, when the offense was at its best in the fourth quarter, it was taking the ball out of your senior quarterback's hands, which is a problem in itself. And I thought, again, Koldenicki, I thought he had a rough night, but some of it was good. That touchdown to Devontae Ross to tie the game, I thought that was a brilliant play design, a great play call. Because I know when I saw Nick Singleton coming in motion into the backfield out of that original alignment, my first thought was this is 100% going to be a pitch to Singleton. They faked it, the defense bought, and it just left Ross able to walk into the end zone on that shovel pass. But yeah, I'm with you. Throwing like that, it's just you're setting it up to fail from the start. I mean, a buddy of mine just texted me, and his exact words were, even though Aller threw a pick, the play call was, in all caps, that bad, because it was a terrible play call. And I think part of it is in the fourth quarter, in overtime, you were finally starting to wear Oregon down. Katron Allen was really starting to find some success on the ground. I would have ridden Allen there in that second overtime, try and get him in there. Especially once you got to the point where Oregon had on the extra point try denied Dennis Sutton, who I thought was tremendous tonight. The officiating, which we will get into, which I think you hate to see a game like this where this is even a talking point, but the officiating was horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Sutton more than once draws holding calls, some very obvious, some on very important plays that were not called. But yeah, it was frustrating. This was a game where it went from Penn State had no business to winning to like, hey, it felt like they should have pulled this out. And again, to go back to what you said earlier, Dylan, they just keep finding new ways to lose these games. And that just adds to the frustration. If you're a Penn State fan, if you're in this program, and again, they're going to have plenty of opportunities the rest of the year to prove themselves. Ohio State, Indiana looks like they're going to be a top 10 team when they come to Beaver Stadium. the playoff, assuming you get there. But it's just tonight was an opportunity, and you put it perfectly earlier to exercise those demons. And I think the program as a whole, especially with Drew Aller, this win would have gone a long way to get monkeys off the back, exercise demons, take a deep breath, however you want to put it. And they didn't do it. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Nobody's going to care that maybe you found something offensively in the fourth quarter and in overtime because you lost. And that's what it comes down to in these games. That's what it's always come down to with James Franklin. They've had so many opportunities. 2017 at Ohio State, 2019 at Minnesota, the Orange Bowl last year, tonight. They've had so many opportunities that were there for the taking to potentially take that step as a program, and they haven't done it. And it's just, it's frustrating. But I digress. I could go on forever about that. But before we go any further, I do see the comments. I see the Oregon fans. Yeah, I get it. But while you're in the comments, tonight's show, if you have noticed, on the last few weeks, is free. And if you want to keep it free, please feel free to contribute to our channel, right? Give us that like, give us that follow, share us, give us the super thanks. The super thanks option is there. It doesn't matter if it's $1. It goes a long way if you guys want to keep this free every week moving forward. But yeah, it's so frustrating for Penn State. It's just, again, this one was, you went from a game you had no business winning to a game that was there for the taking, and they couldn't do it. And yeah, you're stuck now. I said it Dylan, I know you're at the same Slack channel of Penn State people I'm in, where it's like, hey, you lose tonight, you run the table in October, you go to Columbus, you lose, you go 10-2. And unless you get a favorable matchup in the first round of the CFP, it feels like you're 10-2 and losing the first round of the playoff. Lather, rinse, repeat. And I'm at the point now with Drew Aller, with James Franklin, and I have been maybe the biggest defender of James Franklin during his tenure at Penn State. And I still think he's a tremendous football coach. But until you show me you can do it, I have no reason to believe it's going to happen. That's why I picked Oregon to win coming into this game, was because until you show me you can do it, I'm not going to pick you to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'm still there, because tonight's game was just, as bad as everything went offensively in the first 50 minutes of this game, this is one that Penn State probably still should have won. And again, some things went against them. We're going to get into the officiating. It was not good. It was Penn State officiating, or Big Ten, officiating at its finest. Rod Snodgrass was the head official. That name sounds familiar. That was the official from the 2020 Indiana game, where I'm still waiting for the second that Michael Penix was actually in the end zone. Some things worked against you, but ultimately good teams find ways to overcome that, win games, and Penn State didn't do it tonight.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be repeating points at this point, but kind of shifting gears, going off on Drew. It's, and here's the then again, I've been a big believer in Drew in the past, but and I said again, then I said somebody else was, as somebody who watches, who is an Eagles fan, watches a lot of Eagles football, watching Jalen Hurts play in clutch situations, and then watching Drew Aller play in clutch situations is an incredibly different experience. And I'm not trying to compare Drew to Jalen, but it's like the point is with Jalen, I feel like anytime the Eagles are down and Jalen needs to put together a drive, he does so. But with Drew and Penn State, I've never gotten that feeling with Aller that he has that ability to put together a game-winning drive for the name, and that was going to potentially be a game-winning drive. They score a touchdown, they need to go for two. They go for two, you win the game. You get the two, you win the game. But I still think he has a chance to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. I think he has a chance to be a better NFL quarterback than a college quarterback, because I think he's not a great fit in this system. But at the same time, these are the types of plays and situations that are going to hurt him in the draft, and he has a lot of marks in the bad category when it comes to clutch situations. I'm not sure I can name a situation. Maybe USC last year, but he has not come up much in the clutch for Penn State, and it's really unfortunate for the Nittany Lions because everything else has been there for them to be successful. But at the end of the day, one of the common denominators in these losses over the last 3 years has been his performance in these games. He's a good kid and he is a good quarterback, but at the end of the day, when the lights are on, you have to step up and play your best. And he has consistently not done that. I mean, you look across the other sideline tonight, Dante Moore, 29 for 39, 248, and 3 touchdowns. He was fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, I know with Dante Moore, I thought early on things seemed like the game was moving too fast for him. To his credit, he settled in, and I'm trying to highlight it. It's not working, but we do have a comment here that says Dante Moore is the man, and I agree. Dante Moore was awesome tonight. There was more than one time where he wasn't afraid to just throw the ball away. Hey, tuck and run for 5, and that was a big thing for Oregon. And you mentioned with Drew and coming up short in these games outside of USC last year, and I think a big part of that is that when Drew Aller took over in 2023, I think a lot of people felt, and maybe wrongfully so, with hindsight, and I'll be the first person to admit I was wrong here too, was that Sean Clifford in some ways was maybe holding this back. And you thought when you went to Drew, the 5-star guy, 247 Sports had him as the number 1 recruit in the country, he was going to take them to this next level. And it hasn't happened. And I think that's probably part of the frustration as well. Because you had such high hopes for this. And I agree. I don't think it's a great fit in Andy Koldenicki's system.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it because we saw tonight when Drew used his legs at times, it was very effective. And I think for Koldenicki's system, which I still think is very good, I think Koldenicki's a great coach still. For it to be fully effective, you need a quarterback who can use their legs. And it's not that Drew can't. I mean, tonight he averaged 4.7 yards a carry, and that's with the sacks. When he tucked the ball and ran, it was effective. And it's just I don't know how much of it is, square peg, round hole. And he did an excellent job, just an absolute excellent job in the fourth quarter to lead this team back. But it's the inconsistencies, right? There was a play. It was right before their last drive of the second half, or the first half, excuse me. And he hits back foot sliding, falling down, hits Devontae Ross on a throw that a lot of NFL quarterbacks aren't going to make for first down.
Yeah, that was
they're somehow going to at least get in the field goal range and have a lead at halftime. And then the very next play, if he leads Luke Reynolds might wind up inside the 10 when it's all said and done. Yeah. Puts it on the back shoulder, throws it behind him. Reynolds doesn't catch it. And there was more than one throw like that tonight. It didn't matter because they wound up scoring, but their last drive of regulation, the first play of the drive, again, puts it behind Reynolds. It puts it in front of him. It's a big gain. It's the inconsistencies with Drew that I think are so maddening. The mechanics come and go with his footwork, with his arm angles. And that's what drives you insane because there's at times you see it. You see that talent shine through. And again, the interception in double overtime, yes, he deserves blame for it because it was not a good throw, but it also was not a good play call at all. I think frustration is the word of the night for Penn State football, for Penn State fans, because I think that's where we're all at. Just the ultimate frustration to so many times be so close, have that signature, get over the hump kind of win in your grasp, and you let it slip, and they let it slip again tonight.
Yeah, staying on the offensive side of the ball, because I think we'll finish off with the good stuff with the defense, because I do think the defense played pretty good tonight, all things considered, especially when you consider heading into the fourth quarter, they were on the field for what felt like 60, 70% of the game. Early on, and even throughout the game, and this hasn't just been this week, this has been 4 games now, the offensive line has just been not nearly good enough for Penn State. They averaged
massive disappointment through 4 games.
They averaged 1.8, 1.9 yards per carry in the first half. Second half, they were averaging 5 yards per carry, which again makes the last play a little bit more of a questionable call, even more a questionable call. But offensive line was not good. This was supposed to be an offensive line that was among the best in the country this year. But they are not moving people off the ball at all. Instead, they are often getting moved backwards and just not opening up holes. The difference between Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton continues to widen. Allen tonight was tremendous. Singleton, on the other hand, I thought had a pretty rough night himself. Allen, I mean, you saw in the fourth quarter, he just has that extra drive in his game that he picks up those extra 5-6 yards. I mean, he carried the pile multiple times late in that game to, either get a first down or get close to a first down. So I thought he was really good late in the game. But, the offensive line the trenches in general just have not been good enough in these big games as well. Last year against Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, I thought they were good. But you look at that Ohio State game last year late, especially defensively. You look at the Michigan game a year before that, 2 years ago now. It comes down to the trenches. The last few years, it's been on the defensive side of the ball. Penn State today, defensively in the trenches, I thought did better than the numbers may indicate. I mean, no sacks, 1 tackle for a loss today for Penn State. Kept Oregon to 4.5 yards rushing. Definitely did not get some calls to go their way in the pass rush. But at the end of the day, I thought the defensive line did pretty good, all things considered. But the offensive line just wasn't enough. Didn't get enough push in the trenches. Felt like when they did have success, it was more so because of Katron Allen's vision and physicality than the offensive line just being able to move people. But didn't think that was good enough. The wide receivers and tight ends I thought were okay. Definitely some balls I think that should have been caught that weren't. But there was a lot of positives late, but it's hard to totally forget about what this team showed through the first 45 minutes of this game offensively.
Yeah, and with the offensive line, you came into the year thinking this was a group that legitimately could win the Joe Moore Award, and they could not look any further from it right now. And with the running backs, and this no knock on Nick Singleton, because I think Singleton has it in him to be a tremendous back. We saw it plenty of times last year. We saw it against Oregon last year. We saw it in the Orange Bowl where the way the game is called, the way it's schemed, Nick Singleton could have scored 6 touchdowns against Notre Dame with better execution and ran them off the field. But right now, Singleton's averaging 4.4 yards a carry, and Katron Allen's averaging 8. It is what it is. It's Allen has produced. You need to ride Katron Allen right now. He's the better back. It's that simple. He's the better back right now. And you mentioned the defensive line. I thought for the most part the defensive line played well. I thought Denai Dennis Sutton was tremendous. Again, multiple holdings that weren't called, including the drive where Oregon went up 10-3 to take the lead for the first time. A third down conversion where he was just absolutely mugged, and I don't know how it wasn't called.
There was a couple of muggings.
Yeah, that wasn't the only ones. Right, Fisher dealt with it. Chaz Coleman continues to flash. The fumble at the goal line was a tremendous play by Chaz Coleman. I have never in my life playing it, watching football, I have never heard the blade of the grass grazed his knee. We're going to call him down. That was
Yeah.
the worst. I'm going to get angry for a second. I apologize. But that was the worst overturned call I have. I don't care the sport. That is the worst overturned call I have ever seen off of replay in my entire life in any sport. You could see daylight under his knee. And even if you could not, I don't care. You don't call a guy down because a blade of grass grazed his knee. That was a horrendous call. And not only did it directly lead to 7 points for Oregon, if this game is 3-3 and you have Zakee Wheatley returning a fumble to midfield, Penn State has all the momentum. They're in good field position. The game, that was the worst call I have ever seen from a replay team ever, regardless of sport. That was horrendous. People should be fired over that call. That call was terrible. And now that does not excuse Penn State's offense for the first 50 minutes by any means, because they very well may have come and won 3-0 and had the punt. But that was a god-awful call. In no world should that play have been overturned. And if that play is not overturned, there's a real scenario where Penn State wins this game. That was a god-awful call.
Yeah, no.
Thank you, Roger, for appreciating the passion on it, because that was, even if I'm not a Penn State fan, I'd be passionate about it because that was a horrible call.
No, yeah, and trust me, I 100% agree. I'm just, I'm so used to being very not monotone, but from covering covering the team, I'm very used to staying a little bit on the column side. But yeah, I just don't know how you overturned that play. I mean, we've never seen a call overturned because of a blade of grass grazed a knee.
Grazing.
And I don't like. How do you even see that on video? You can't.
I couldn't see it. I watched it. I couldn't see it.
I mean, you can.
It wasn't there.
But funny enough, we were watching because Clay was watching the game at my house tonight with me, and as soon as that fumble happened and they went to commercial, I'm like, this is going to come back and be overturned, because I thought he was initially down when they ruled him down. Now he wasn't, but live to me it looked like he went down first, then went backwards, fumbled, whatever it may be. But yeah, that was absolutely one of the worst overturned calls I've ever seen. The officiating was terrible in this game for the most part. Both, there'll be Oregon fans perhaps watching this who say, well, Penn State got away with holds, and I'm sure they did. But there were some pretty blatant muggings of Deni Dennis son of Zariah Fisher in this game that just did not get called. It was I don't know how they got missed. And, for Penn State fans, it's even more irking because they think about last year to the Big Ten championship where similar things happened. Deni Dennis Sutton, Abdul Carter getting mugged throughout the game. Penn State wasn't getting calls then. Penn State didn't get calls this game. But at the end of the day, officiating can be bad, whatever it may be. And yes, that plays into the game. But at the end of the day, Penn State, in my opinion, didn't win this game because for the first 50 minutes of this game offensively, they decided not to show up. Andy Kotelnicki was not in his bag offensively. Drew Aller was pedestrian. The offensive line was terrible. There was nothing good offensively the first 50 minutes of the game. The last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter, the first drive for overtime, the best Penn State's offense has looked all season.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot put yourself in a 14-point hole to a top 10 team that has the ability to win a national championship this year in Oregon and expect to come back and win that game. Yep. Should they have won? You can make the argument they should have won. Or they at least had avenues to win this game.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you cannot have just a lifeless offense for 50 minutes and then, when it doesn't go your way at the end of the game because you lose in overtime because of a bad throw, you could blame refereeing. The refereeing was bad. I know you weren't blaming refereeing for this loss. Correct. For Penn State, but at the end of the day, the only people that Penn State has to look at themselves in the mirror. The only people they can blame in this game is themselves. And it's the offense. I mean, yeah, the defense had some poor moments. Defense still gave up 400 plus yards in this game. But there was a lot of bend, don't break in this game.
Mm-hmm.
They kept Oregon to 17 points in regulation, 13 points in overtime. I expect points to be scored in overtime. It's just how it is.
College overtime, it's going to happen.
Right. So I thought the defense did pretty well tonight. But yeah, the offense is the ones here that have to, swallow this loss at the end of the day. And James Franklin talked with the media, and there's not really much I think to take away from his post game comments here. It was pretty standard James Franklin, stuff. So it is what it is. I mean, do you want to talk about the positives in the defense? Is there anything else you want? I asked first. Anything else you want to talk about offensively in this game?
Real quick, one. If you're an Oregon fan, also complaining about the officiating tonight and not the no call, welcome to the Big Ten. If you haven't learned it yet, you need to learn that if you're a Big Ten team not named Ohio State, you're never going to get a call from the officials when your pass rushers are getting mugged. With that, Tuiotu and Uyunglele may have won this game for Oregon more than anybody. They were tremendous tonight. Tip of the cap to those two. And Marty, great first name, Mar. I see you in the comments. Excuses. Oregon outplayed y'all with a younger team. I'm not you. I've said multiple times. Dylan, you have as well. Penn State lost this game is how they played. It's I said if that fumble was upheld as it should have been, Penn State probably goes 3-0 and punts the ball.
Yeah, at that moment in time, Penn State's offense was doing nothing.
Change the fact it was the wrong call. It was the wrong call. I don't care anything. It was the wrong call. That's what matters. It was the wrong call.
Right.
That's why you have replay to get calls right, and they used replay and got the call wrong. It's just I don't know. It's frustrating. I know it may sound like excuses, but we've been pretty blatant since we popped on here that Penn State was just not good enough in this game. They looked like a top 5 team in the last 10 minutes of this game and the first drive of overtime. They did not look like a top 10. They did not look like a top 25 team offensively in the first 50 minutes of the game. The defense, you've been calling comparisons to the 2023 team for weeks now. And it is definitely trending that way. I know there's a bigger picture at this moment. I still think Penn State at worst is going 10-2 this year. I think they're still tremendously better than everybody left on their schedule outside of Ohio State. I expect them to lose to Ohio State. Could they beat Ohio State? Sure. I don't think the Buckeyes have looked exactly tremendous this first 4 weeks. Neither has Penn State. I think right now the best team in the Big Ten is Oregon. But I think you argue Oregon's the best team in the country, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's just there's no excuses here. Penn State was not a good enough team here on Saturday night in a game that you had a whiteout crowd. You had one of the biggest crowds in Penn State history behind you. You had all the momentum in the fourth quarter and going on into overtime. And unfortunately, it's just Drew Aller coming, not being able to come up with a big play at the right moment, which, we were coming into this game in our group chat, Marty, with Clay and discussing, is this a bigger game for James or Drew? And I said I think it was a bigger game for Drew because his legacy at Penn State right now is that he's a good quarterback, but he can't perform in the big games. And people will say, hey, the fourth quarter, he was good. And he was good in the fourth quarter. But still, at the end of the day, he missed throws in the fourth quarter that would have made a difference. He made a crucial made the game and an interception in overtime. He was not good enough today. And unfortunately, like I said earlier, for Penn State, that has been the common denominator in these games is that he has not been good enough. The offensive line, other factors play into that. Coaching, offensive line, wide receivers, tight ends. It all plays into it. But when everything else changes and there's still the one thing remaining, which is the quarterback, it's hard to point fingers elsewhere. And that's coming from a guy who thinks Drew has a chance to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. I still do, but if somebody would, I would not right now have any good argument for somebody who comes on here and say that they think he's the most overrated quarterback in the country, because unfortunately, all I have is my personal opinion. There is no statistical data right now that backs me up on that, because he unfortunately against these premier opponents just comes up short. If Penn State's going to still achieve their goals this season, which is still on the table, he's going to have to find that next tier in his game. And we're 28 games into his career as a starting quarterback. If it hasn't happened now, when's it going to happen? Is it going to magically happen in the next 4 or 5 weeks before Ohio State? Because honestly, Dante Moore looked like the way better quarterback tonight, and he has much, much less experience. And Clay brought up a good point in the game. Dante Moore in the second quarter and third quarter looked really confident on the sideline. He was pumping up his teammates. I'm not sure I've ever seen Drew look that confident on the sidelines.
No, I haven't. You haven't. You're not wrong. You go back to Penn State's last 3 losses. What's the common component? A late interception from Drew Aller, right? Double overtime tonight. We all know what happened against Notre Dame right at the end of regulation, and the interception after the 2-minute warning against Oregon in the Big Ten title game when they were driving down to look to tie the game. That's the common component. And, I think another thing that doesn't reflect well on him or Andy Kotelnicki or whoever you want to put this on is, Trey Wallace was jettisoned out here in the offseason and is averaging 22 yards a catch for Ole Miss against SEC competition.
That being said,
that's not a good look on Drew Aller or Andy Kotelnicki or anyone else at Penn State.
That being said, on Trey Wallace, he did have a good first 3 weeks of the season. You know what he's done the last 2 weeks though? 2 catches for 22 yards, which is kind of the Trey Wallace experience for Penn State.
That's fair. I mean, we've seen that from Trey before each of the last 2 years.
Right.
Awesome against West Virginia, awesome in non-con play, and in the conference play, and he fades. But still, I don't know. It's. I agree. Like you said, at this point, the book on Drew is what it is, and at what point do you start to think, hey, maybe there isn't another step there, right? Maybe there isn't any more growth to be made. At least not until he gets to the NFL.
Well, let's be honest here. As an experienced quarterback as he is and the talent that he has, are elite defenses of elite teams actually scared about Drew?
No, they're not. We heard that last week on the 2 weeks ago on the broadcast against Villanova, where they talked about meetings he had with Jim Knowles after Jim Knowles was hired, and some of those, just tough, honest discussions that were had, where Jim Knowles used to tell his defensive backs at Ohio State, hey, if Penn State's receivers beat you deep, don't worry, because Aller's going to airmail the ball and you're going to be able to come back to it anyway, right? Yep. And we saw that at times tonight. There was a third down pass to Kyron Hudson in the second quarter right before halftime where he had Hudson open, and if Hudson catches it, even Penn State does not get another yard, they would have been in field goal range, could have taken a 6-3 lead into the half, and he underthrew him. The interception, again, in double overtime, it was not a good play call. I don't completely put that on Drew. Underthrew the ball. If he puts out in front of Reynolds there, worst case scenario, it's falling incomplete. So we continue to see these same mistakes from him, these same issues from him. So what point, like you said, is this just who he is? And, I know it's not a perfect comparison to make, but for a lot of reasons, it's ones that are going to get made. It reminds me, and one of which you'll remember, one of which you being a little bit younger than me, maybe you won't. It reminds me so much of Christian Hackenberg, and just you kept waiting, and you kept waiting for that step to be taken, and it never was. And with Anthony Morelli in the mid-2000s, Again, 5-star, number one quarterback in the country. And you just kept waiting for that step to be taken by Morelli, and it never happened. And, watching Drew Aller reminds me entirely too much of watching Anthony Morelli when he was at Penn State. And it's maddening. It's frustrating. We don't need to continue to beat this dead horse, but yeah, I mean, we're 40 minutes in. We've really focused on the offense. I mean, there were some good things on the defense tonight, obviously. So we'll get into the defense here. But again, for those of you who are here with us, those of you in the comments, we appreciate it. Like we said, tonight's show coming to you free, no subscription needed, unlike the past few weeks. If you guys want to help keep it this way, we like it this way. We get more involvement. Let's keep it this way.
Yep.
Continue to come through. Hit us with those super thanks. Hit us with the super chats. Contribute to the channel if possible. But yeah, defensively, I mean, I thought the defense, again, overall, you gave up 30 points, over 400 yards of offense. That's not going to look great. But you held them to 17 points in regulation. And this is where, for the first 50 minutes of regulation, you had your backs against the wall. Bend but don't break. They came with some big fourth down stops, some of which was aided. I mean, Oregon's first two drives, they would have converted them 4th and inches, brought back as a false start. Their next drive, I still don't know who Dante Moore was trying to spin out on that one. I'm still trying to figure out what that spin move was designed to do. Probably bought Amari Campbell enough time to make the tackle short of the line to gain. But yeah, denied Dennis Sutton, tremendous game. Chaz Coleman continues to show that superstar ability. One guy that I thought somewhat flew under the radar, who played a really strong game because he had not been tested all year, and Oregon won at him at times tonight, was A.J. Harris. People are going to look at the catch that Nicorian Moore had. I believe it was on the drive when Oregon scored to make it 17-3, where he kind of went over Harris on a double move. But Harris was tremendous run support. I think A.J. Harris tonight was a big step towards him kind of solidifying himself as a first-round pick in April. It's going to be a really fun matchup that first weekend of November, to watch him shadow Jeremiah Smith. I think that's going to be one of the more fun individual matchups the entire college football season to watch. But yeah, this defense, I thought Jim Knowles had a great night. Again, they bent at times, but they never really broke. And even in overtime, college overtime, I'm never going to penalize the defense for giving up points. The one thing I will say about the defense, and that I would have liked to have seen them done differently, and I'm willing to bet Penn State's coaching staff would agree. The 4th and 1 in the first overtime, when Penn State had taken the lead, and if they would have stopped Oregon, would have won the game. When Oregon lined up, I wish they would have called a timeout. Come out in, call the timeout and adjust. You almost always see that. I wish they would have done it. But yeah, I thought the defense as a whole played well. You can nitpick some spots if you wanted, but again, I thought the defensive line played well. Zane Grant made some plays. There was a lot of holdings that weren't called. This defensive performance against a top 6 team, against an offense is explosive, against a quarterback like Dante Moore, you're going to take. The offense just didn't do their part.
Yeah, defense really only had 2 bad drives there, and both in third quarter on the back-to-back scoring drives for Oregon. Both of those were extensive drives, 10 plays for 80 yards on the one, 10 plays for 75 yards on the other. Those were the only 2 poor drives for Penn State's defense. Otherwise, in the game, they kept Oregon in regulation, just that field goal, 2 turnovers on downs. Oregon had the missed kick in the first half and punted twice. Fortunately for Penn State's defense, those 2 regulation touchdowns proved to be the difference overall, or part of the difference overall. But yeah, I thought the defense, it definitely bent a lot today, but it really held on for the most part. And obviously, that one of that touchdowns was aided by a very controversial replay, which we already discussed.
It wasn't controversial. It was the wrong call. It was the wrong call. Oregon should have had 7 less points in regulation. I don't care. Anybody says it was the wrong call, I will die on that hill.
Yeah, I thought the defense, came away with more positives than not. There was things I would have liked to see different. I thought in some third down and fourth and short situations, they made it way too easy for Dante Moore just to check it down into a receiver coming down across the middle, wide open. They were giving up a lot of short stuff on third and short, third and medium, fourth down. They gave up, a very interesting game for both defenses that for a 30-24 game, both defenses played way better than the numbers I think would indicate. But at the same time, Penn State was 6 for 15 on third down. Oregon was 6 for 18. Oregon was 5 of 7 on fourth down. Penn State was 3 for 3 on fourth down. It was a very interesting game in that aspect. Neither team is going to like what they did on third and fourth down defensively in this game. But I don't think the box score nor the final score really tells the story of this game defensively for either side. I will say, though, at the end of the day, as good as Penn State defense played, what they really needed in this game that they never got outside of that one play was a turnover.
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter, in overtime, to win this type of game, you tend to need one of your big players to step up and win the game.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oregon got that.
Yeah, and
Penn State did.
Penn State had chances, right? I mean, the first overtime, what was it? I think Oregon's first or second play, the botched fumble where it looked like, I forget who was in running back on the play. They clearly, you could tell by the positioning of their arms, because they never gave that good basket for Moore to put it in. They clearly thought it was a play action. Moore thought he was handing it off, and the ball was on the ground. And Zane Durant was close to getting it. And if Zane Durant recovers it, Penn State wins the game.
Yeah.
The right before the touchdown, I believe it was the second overtime. Again, almost went haywire. Or no, it was the first overtime, excuse me, because the second overtime they scored in the first play. But that shovel pass touchdown where the guard gets driven into the backfield. Mm-hmm. I forget who caught the ball for Oregon, but the guard got driven into him as Moore was shoveling it forward. Yeah. That was another one where you had a chance to get the ball on the ground, recover it, and go win the game, and they didn't do it. So, yeah, I'm with you. That was the one disappointing thing for me from the defense was, you kept waiting for that play, and you thought you got that play on the fumble, whereas Akee Wheatley scooped it and housed it to about midfield. And that's where, if you're going to be critical of the defense, I think that's it. Because, you mentioned third down. They held Oregon to 30%. And a team of that caliber, you would take that. Now, if they're going to go for it 7 times on fourth down like Oregon did, you don't want to let them convert 5 times. Yeah. But they were much better on third down than they had been up to this point on the season. And I think that adds almost to the frustration for Penn State because, like I said, Oregon was only 30% on third down. And while it's not much better, it's still better. Penn State was a 40% clip on third down. Penn State converted to all their fourth downs. It's just
one thing I think you have to
Ahead,
one thing I think you have to, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but one thing I think you have to factor in with the third downs for Oregon is that the Ducks coming to this game had the idea in mind that they were going to be willing to go for it quite a bit on fourth.
That's going to modify your play.
Right. And me and Clay were talking about this earlier in the game. For Oregon, when you think you have 4 plays to get a first down every time, that means on 3rd and 8, you're not going for 8-9 yards necessarily. If you get 5 yards, you're going to feel comfortable about fourth down. With Penn State's offense for really the first 3 weeks plus the first 3 quarters of this game, they don't have that really to hang their hat on. So if you're going to ding the defense on one thing, I think it's going to be just a lack of chaos in general. No turnovers, no sacks, 1 tackle for a loss. Hard to win a football game against a top 10 team if you aren't creating any chaos. Now, give credit to Oregon. Part of that is Dante Moore is a really smart quarterback. Dante Moore looked like a 5-star quarterback tonight. It's part of the play calling for Oregon. Penn State got held here and there, but can't use that as an excuse, right? At the end of the day, Penn State, there may have been 3-4 missed holding calls, there's still another 60, 70 plays from Oregon in this game that Penn State did not create any chaos in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, it was a good performance by Penn State, but if we're going to be critical of the offense, got to be critical of the defense as well. And while it was a very good performance by the defense, it's kind of the theme of what I've been saying tonight. It was not good enough.
And
so
that's the story of this program in these games for the last 10 years, right? Good, but not good enough. It's just we've seen it so many times.
It's just a slogan at this point.
It is, and again, that's the frustration because I mean, like I've said, I think James Franklin is a great football coach. I think there's, I was talking to my buddy John about it earlier today. There's probably 125 programs in the country. If James Franklin was fired tomorrow by Penn State, would fire their coach to go get James in a heartbeat, maybe even more than that. But you're always, for so long, the comparison was Penn State and Clemson, right? Clemsoning was always a thing until it wasn't. And then Deshaun Watson came along and Clemsoning wasn't a thing. I mean, it is again now, but for a while there it wasn't. And everyone thought Drew Aller would be that guy for Penn State. He would be
the Trevor Lawrence.
Speaking purely on field,
or
who
shall not be named.
On field would be the Deshaun Watson for Penn State, and it hasn't worked. And it's so frustrating at this point because I mean, you felt coming into the year. I mean, I predicted Penn State to go 11-1. I thought the loss would be at Ohio State. I thought they'd be 11-1, get to the Big Ten championship game.
Theoretically, everything's still on the table.
It is. Yeah. Everything, even if they go to Columbus and lose, everything's still on the table for them at 10-2. But it's just, it has become until you see them win one of these games, you're not.
But even then, like I think for the most part, we've said what we need to say about this game. So we can look big picture here for a few minutes. Okay, say they go into Columbus, pull off the win, which right now, I don't think you're expecting that. No. I don't think I'm expecting that, right? No. But let's say they defy expectations. They go into Columbus and do something they haven't done since 2011 and win in Columbus.
Yeah, and really – and this is not me trying to slight them.
No, go ahead.
You're going to go back to 2008 for the last time they truly won in Columbus. That was a team where Tressel was fired right before the season, and the team was checked out. They went like 6-6.
Let's just be plain with it. I mean, it's been 17 years since they've won in Columbus, but they still haven't beaten Ohio State, period, since 2016. It's been almost 10 years. So let's say they pull it off. Again, I think Ohio State is a very good team. They could win the national championship game. I would not be surprised. Through whatever it has been for them, 4 or 5 games, I have not been overly impressed by them. I think Julian Saint's really good. It's interesting because he's been playing very well, but at the same time, they're not really lighting it up offensively. I think part of that is because their run game this year is a little pedestrian compared to the last few years. But that being said, still an elite defense. I don't know how Penn State's going to move the ball against Ohio State. I'm going to be honest.
I don't know that either.
But let's say they somehow pull off that win. I don't know if I necessarily am going to suddenly have faith in Penn State to then make the Big Ten championship, which if they beat Ohio State, they would make the Big Ten championship game and soon they win out. Then they would have to face probably Oregon again. I'm not sure I'm going to have confidence for them to win necessarily another game against a top 10 opponent just because they did it once, right? Mm-hmm. And then if they're going to win a national championship still, they're probably going to have to beat 2 more top 10 teams.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it's just – and that's kind of been like – that was the thing coming into this whole season, right? Like, if they're going to do it, they're going to have to beat 4 to 5 top 10 teams to do it. And that's the great thing about the college football playoffs is that there is no fluke champions now. Maybe somebody gets upset, but to win a national championship, you're still going to have to beat 3 or 4 of the top 12 teams in the country every year. And I just don't know. I'm not going to have faith in Penn State just because maybe they upset Ohio State in a couple of weeks. and that's and that's nothing. That's not because I don't think they're a good team. I think they're a good team. I think James Franklin's a very good coach, but as James Franklin said after the game today in the press conference, I guess he was asked about the record against top 10 teams. He said it's not a narrative; it's a reality, and yeah, it's exactly what it is. You brought up Clemson in. It was very much like Clemson in for a while. At this point, he's just this generation's Mark Richt.
God, he is. Yeah, he really is, and it's.
And I don't think Penn State should necessarily replace James Franklin because, again, I think he's a really good coach. I don't blame those who think Penn State needs to go in a new direction. Yeah. I get it at this point. But at the same time, I don't know if Penn State's version of Kirby Smart is walking through that door.
Penn State doesn't have a Kirby Smart out there.
No.
Georgia got lucky where the next rising superstar coach was a Georgia alum. Penn State doesn't have that.
And again, we're not going to get into this right now, but as I said to, again, Clay earlier, right now, I don't know if there's really an obvious answer of who's the next great fit for Penn State if it's not James Franklin. There would be a lot of people that say Mad Rule. I don't think that would be a good hire for Penn State.
My opinions on that,
and that's a whole different conversation. But I mean, that's the pickle. Penn and James Franklin isn't going anywhere, right?
No.
At this point, James Franklin is locked in with Penn State.
When James Franklin's no longer the head coach of Penn State, it's because James Franklin no longer wants to be the head coach of Penn State. It's because James either retires or takes a job elsewhere.
Is a program better than Penn State going to offer James at this point? I don't think so.
I don't either. I mean, you could argue, I'm sure when Napier's fired, you're going to hear him mention with Florida. Yeah. If Florida State goes south after Friday night, Norvell's fired, you're going to hear him mention because he's interviewed at Florida State before. But are those programs truly better than Penn State right now? I don't think they are. I mean, they've won national championships more recently, but Florida State, had literally one of the best teams in history of college football, and Florida had Urban Meyer. So, right. I don't know. I'm with you. That's where it's frustrating. I know the two of us and Clay have discussed this ad nauseum in recent years, where I'm not going to fault anyone who wants to try something different. But, you mentioned Mark Richt. I'll go back to, not a perfect comparison by any means, but go back to Bo Pelini, where Nebraska fans were over going 10-2 every year and wanted to try something different. And Nebraska has been an utter and complete show since they ran Pelini.
And that is the risk you take. But the other risk you take is maybe the next hire is Kirby Smart, right?
Yeah, and I do think, too, with Georgia, when they made that move off of Rick, they knew Kirby wasn't going to tell them no, right? Yeah. Again, you don't have that if you're Penn State. So, yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Well, we got a last-minute comment here. I guess we could entertain this quickly after I make this cut.
Yeah, we will.
But bigger picture, looking at the schedule going forward for Penn State, UCLA this upcoming week, Northwestern after that, at Iowa on October 18th, a bye week, and then at Ohio State. Penn State should win the next 3 games. That game at Iowa is interesting. If that's a night game at Iowa, that could be very interesting for Penn State. But
they don't have an offense.
They don't, but it's
Penn State necessarily does. But
I think Penn State wins that game, but I don't know if it's
not going to be pretty.
I can see Penn State
and win pretty.
I can see Penn State going out and winning, maybe not pretty, but I can see Penn State winning in some weird blowout fashion. But I also could see this being like a 2019 game or 2019-2017 game, whatever it may be, where Penn State wins at wins at the last second. But what I'd like to see out of Penn State these next 2 weeks against UCLA and Northwestern, 2 of the worst teams in the Big Ten, is I want to see them come out with a chip on their shoulder going forward.
Yes.
Right. I want to see them beat these 2 teams by 30, 40 points like they should. Especially Northwestern's at home. UCLA, you have to go on the road. but that UCLA team is horrible.
Yeah, that should be a thumping.
So I mean, go out, thump those two teams, go to Iowa, try not to win ugly, and then the most important thing for Penn State is going to get through these next 3 weeks healthy.
Yes.
The good news for them is they get a bye week before Ohio State. Yeah, I like to see them play with a chip on their shoulder after this one. Not that it really means anything, but at this point, you are going to, in the case you go 10-2 and don't get a Big Ten championship game in the process, you're going to have some style points here. So Penn State better be ready to not necessarily run the score, but the offense needs to come out blazing the next few weeks and really the rest of the way, so they can, have a couple of impressive wins under their belt. Because outside of Ohio State, the only other good team on their schedule is Indiana. So I mean, at the end of the season, if they lose to Ohio State, they'll have that. Maybe they'll have that Indiana record, that game on their, on their resume. But it's hard to. Michigan State is okay, but not great. Nebraska, who knows? Rutgers isn't good. I mean, Penn State's gonna need help if they go 10-2. So they better, find a way to win that Ohio State game at the end of the day.
Yeah, and again, this is where Penn State really needed this one. But they didn't get it, and they've got no one to blame but themselves. I mean, like I said, the officiating was poor. That was a fumble. I don't care what anybody says. It was a fumble. It was a fumble. It was a fumble. It was a fumble. But yeah, that'll do it for us here tonight. It is now 12:31 a.m. here for Dylan and I. We're an hour deep. So yeah, we can end our vent session, our frustration session. And like you said, hopefully they'll come out next weekend against UCLA and just stick it to a god-awful Bruins team. But for those of us here at the White Out Report, we will be back on Wednesday to preview next weekend's matchup with the Bruins out at the Rose Bowl. Will be cool. I don't care. And some of this is me being a kid who grew up in Big Ten country, especially when it's still traditional Big Ten. The Rose Bowl will always be something special. So getting to play there in the regular season will be cool. But yeah, we'll be back with you Wednesday night. So make sure you're here to join us. And until then, have a good rest of your weekend, everyone. It was a fumble. I will end it at that. It was a fumble.